Welcome back to I'm Still Here. I'm Larry.
I'm Heather. In 1998, I was diagnosed with stage 4 breast cancer at the age of 26. It changed everything for us, but I'm still here.
So in this episode, we are going to be continuing our talk on what your role in cancer treatment is.
Yeah, one of the most common things I get asked is, what did you do? Mm-hmm. So there's, I did a lot of things, right? Mm-hmm. But specifically, there's 4 kind of things that we have kind of
narrowed it down to. And if you caught the last episode, we talked about things how you can control what you can control mentally, and the ways that Heather chose to do that, and the ways that she tried to keep things going down the right track. And mentally, the next one that we're going to talk about is what you can physically do, because she gets a ton of questions about that.
Yeah, so when we're talking about physical, we kind of were nutrition, exercise, and then we also rest is also an important part of that. So I will say that I feel like mental it supersedes all of this, right? Because however you choose to approach this from a mental status matters, right?
It does.
If everything that you're doing feels like a drudgery or carries negative feelings along with it, I feel that impacts your ability for it to really be effective, right?
No doubt. With mentally, without you taking care of the mental portion, really the physical portion is going to struggle, and everything else is
absolutely.
That's, I don't want to say number one, because they're all.
Yeah, well, so the other thing with this is that, physical kind of can help put you into a better mental state, right?
Oh, no doubt.
Right? So
no doubt.
We all know kind of the research on endorphins and everything that comes from exercising. So let's just start with that.
Well, first, let's just say that when Heather was going through this, she was 26.
Yeah.
27, 28, in that realm there. Very strong, very athletic, moved her body daily prior to cancer, almost daily.
Yeah.
A lot. So
you had a pretty active job, if nothing else, right?
Yeah, but we still played sports, we still did all those kind of things.
Yeah.
I understand that some of the things that she did is not going to be applicable to someone who has a physical disability that they're dealing with, or that has you're older and you can't move your body the same way. But we're talking about what did you do, because those are the questions that we get. And you can then take that.
Yeah, and of course everybody is welcome here, but the majority of women that I talk to are 50 or younger. I'm on the older end of that now. So yeah, moving your body, that was my number one, right? I did not want to be thinking about, I'm going to have chemo and then I'm going to go lay on the couch,
so
right?
With her chemo treatments at the beginning, it was every 3 weeks.
Yeah.
So it was high dose for 8 to 10 hours a day, and then off for 3 weeks and recovering, obviously.
Yeah. So I would give myself a little bit of grace on, because obviously if you've been through chemo, you know that you kind of have this, you expect it to happen immediately. It doesn't always happen, that you feel terrible, but then it kind of, goes to a low spot. Yeah. But I just wanted to move my body. So part of my daily schedule, part of, Sydney being at the babysitter's was me taking her to the babysitter and then coming home and taking a walk. A lot of times a long walk, and back in that time period it was with my Walkman and some sort of cassette or CD or something, I don't even remember, but just getting out and moving my body.
Yeah. So. And that sometimes was right after cancer treatment, and that I remember that thinking, what in the hell are you doing? You should be resting, or that's where my brain went, when I think it was getting back to the mental side of things. It was a way for you to kind of punch back.
I felt like to do something and to keep my body as strong as possible, I think especially coming through COVID, I really have learned that, a body in motion stays in motion and a body at rest stays at rest, right? So it's a lot harder to get moving again once you stop moving. So I just really tried to think about how could I keep moving. And it wasn't ever anything crazy. We live in Michigan, and Michigan winters can be a lot. I did have some like exercise videos. I remember doing Taebo with Billy Blanks back in the day too. So I think that's probably the thing I've said the most in all of these podcasts is back in the day.
You were so old.
I know, but it did help me feel better about being able to, just control that another aspect of what I was doing and stay strong. So,
and kind of, you weren't working,
right?
And you had worked prior to that your whole life, and I think it to some extent gave you a box to check off and to go, I got something done today.
Yeah, it definitely provided structure. And I will say, when I was transitioning from treatment all of the time into like kind of this maintenance type of treatment, which I've been on for years, right? One of the first things I did was I joined a gym, and I remember, and I got back to lifting, which I had lifted in my teens, and I really loved how it made me feel about myself. And so again, strong and healthy, but providing kind of that structure in my day to lift. And it did kind of guide some of my choices too, even early on, in terms of, like with the double mastectomy, I chose not to do reconstruction because I really just didn't want to take that time or give up that time that I felt like I'd be giving up in terms of recovery. So I wanted to get right back to...
Can we quickly maybe go through that year of treatment that you did for people out there wondering?
Yeah.
We don't have to talk about everything, but...
Yeah, so for me, I hesitate to do it only because this wouldn't be the treatment now. But
it gives them a...
But it does give, so please don't run to your doctors and ask for a stem cell transplant. But here's what it looked like. I did 4 rounds of chemotherapy. My 6-centimeter tumor was gone, undetectable by the end of those 4 rounds. And then I did a double stem cell transplant. So I was in clinical trials to do that, which again tells you the severity of my disease, that I qualified for clinical trials. But I was inpatient for 3 weeks for the first stem cell transplant, which is high dose chemo with stem cells to kind of reintroduce life to you. And then I did another transplant outpatient a month or so later. Those were, woo. It was really rough. And honestly, what we have heard since then is that like doing a stem cell transplant was sort of like taking a club, for something that you really needed a hammer for. So I'm really glad that treatment has changed. It was really, really a challenging time. But after the stem cells, I did a double mastectomy, which again, I know isn't always the case anymore. And we'll talk about that in a different episode. I have some pretty strong feelings on that. I really kind of wish that I was, able to preserve my breasts. And I know that so many people are like, get it out, get it out, get it out. I understand that, but it's super empowering to watch a tumor shrink. And it's also kind of the loss of your breast, at least for me, was a huge thing from a sensuality, just really feeling like myself, so that was a tough thing. And then after the double mastectomy, I did radiation, like 30 treatments of radiation. So my treatment of that part really took up 9 or 10 months of the first year that I was diagnosed. And then I was put on tamoxifen and kind of, sent on my way. So that was when I joined the gym. And I guess just to I might as well just finish it out for you a little bit. After tamoxifen, I was on tamoxifen for a couple of years, had slight progression, moved to Arimidex, was on that for a couple of years, same sort of thing, slight progression, and then moved to Faslodex, which was a really new drug at the time. And it has been the drug for me, right? I've been on it ever since. So since 2004. But
And you ended up doing breast reconstruction, I don't know when.
I did. Probably,
There's a ways.
yeah, three or 4 years later.
Sorry. So, going through all of that treatment, I'm sure some people have been wondering out there. So laying that out there, that also determines what you can and can't do. But in all of those, you did. You moved your body in some way, even.
Absolutely. I did laps around 8A at the hospital during the stem cell transplant. So it becomes if exercising is taking away from your energy or if it's adding to, I think, right?
Yeah.
So, but for me, there were more benefits to doing it than not. It doesn't mean that I was not taking a day off. I would do that kind of stuff. But
there's a lot of surgeries in there too that she left out.
Oh, well, over the years there's been a
them.
lot of surgeries. So yeah.
Okay. Well, let's. What do you want to shift to food now or no?
Yeah, let's talk about. This is the top
This
question.
Is the questions? Okay.
This is the question.
So before you I think you should just act like there weren't questions and just tell us what you did and why.
Yeah. Everything that I did was, how do I build a stronger body? How do I starve cancer? How do I just make myself as kind of, I don't know, how do I play a role in this, right? So the first thing that guided some of my decisions was my hormone status. So I was positive for hormones, right, which are found in food also, and so
especially proteins.
I eliminated any source of hormones that I possibly could, because it just made sense to me. And that was then followed up by the nutrition people that I worked with, that, why would we introduce a source of something that we were trying to get rid, that we knew was a driver in this cancer, right?
So to be specific, she knew that obviously the cancer was hormone driven. It wasn't that she wasn't eating proteins that had hormones added to them. It was the protein itself had hormones in it.
Right.
So for that time being, she decided, didn't have to by any means, just decided cutting all that out.
Yeah. So protein in terms of meat and dairy specifically, I do believe that our protein sources in general have gotten better over the years too.
They're available.
They're available now. That was sort of the height of any chicken that you bought was full of hormones and antibiotics at the time, because they were, bigger, faster, stronger, whatever. Chicken breast. I just really started to go, okay, I want to eat real food. And I want to not have these hormones in my body.
And sugar.
So sugar is controversial. People are, it doesn't matter. It does matter, blah, blah, blah. Again, for me, it was one more thing I could control, that, if in fact it did play a role, I wasn't going to give it to it, give it to the cancer. And again, I have a huge sweet tooth. I love sugar. It would be my top food group if I could. Doesn't mean I never had any sugar. It just meant that for the most part, the choices I made were about how do I use food as fuel for my body. And I realized that there's so much more to food than fuel, right? Mm-hmm. In terms of relations and how it comforts, all of those different things. I think there's a huge play in here in terms of guilt. And things that aren't hard for me is to separate that kind of stuff. It wasn't hard for me to say, yep, I'm going to have this, whatever it is, as a celebration, and I'm not going to feel guilty about it. I'm just going to go back to eating my normal, really healthy food the next day. Mm-hmm. it just was helpful for me. So again, in the morning I would make a smoothie. These smoothies started out as like really big. I mean, it was a big part of my day, and it would just, we got a really nice blender that can really chop things up. And there was spinach, there would be sometimes carrots, but fruit, frozen fruit, flaxseed, all sorts of things. But
tofu?
Sometimes, yeah, tofu back in the day. It was just a great way to really load my body with healthy food every day. So, yeah, there's so much to food.
and so prior to cancer, we, as a family, we probably would have been considered to eat on the healthier side. You know, we didn't
I always
unhealthy.
liked fruits and vegetables. Those were something. It wasn't like, you know.
But
we're Midwesterner.
Yeah, you know, we certainly weren't like something to you should do that. Now, the diet that became, you know, kind of the family meals or whatever also weren't normal. I wouldn't say that, wow, you should just go and do that. It definitely was an adjustment type of thing. And there were some foods I was just like, I'm not eating that.
And so that was one thing that I was thinking about too, was like, in terms of caregivers, like if you want to support your person, don't demand food that they're not making. No. So one of our bigger support system, like they bought pizza gift certificates for our local place, and on nights that I was eating something that he was like, I'm out, he'd get a pizza, and that's I mean, I don't know if that's the healthiest for you, but it was good for us overall.
Yeah.
And I also learned, as I got better at things, I learned to kind of make things like in sections. So we could do like a Mexican night where it would be like, I'm going to add these things. And here's this that you can
ground
add.
Beef.
You know, the beef or whatever, or even cheese. And, you know, we learned to just kind of put our meals together. And now we eat together all the time.
Yeah, and it's not like I certainly would eat Mexican without ground beef, and probably wouldn't even. That's not even my favorite part of it. And I found that out though by doing some of this stuff. As I don't need those protein sources like I thought it was the staple of the meal. And your diet and our diets have definitely changed since that year one type of thing.
Absolutely.
You backed off on some things and other things became more important. You know. And talk a little bit maybe about that.
Well, I think for me now, it's more about the food source. I'm not crazy organic. I do believe in the dirty dozen, so there are certain things that I buy organic. But food sources mean so much more to me. So like we buy all of our beef from a local farm that we know is not pumping it full of anything. I do read labels.
And we pay
a little bit
prior
more.
to this date and time. We paid more than going to the grocery store. Now today, maybe it's
probably
even
cheaper.
I don't even know, but that was a sacrifice. And I teach health, so I talk to my kids about you'll end up paying a lot more money in some cases to eat healthier. That's the way it is, and you got to make a decision. And she made that decision for us early on, and I'm all for it, 100%. But it is more expensive to eat healthier. Yeah, it truly is.
Yeah, I think it's interesting too. I mean, I know, cities have grocery stores that have a lot more available, but rural areas have local places where I could pick blueberries and freeze them, or I could get chickens that I knew were raised without anything. And so it goes back to Michael Pollan talks about eat real food, and mostly plants.
As close to the source of the ground
as close as possible, yeah. Yep. So that's what we do. I mean, our kids were not raised on milk, neither one of them. I remember Sydney.
And that's controversial in certain parts of the world you live in. We get that.
Right. Sydney.
We didn't publicize that. We didn't make a big deal out of it. They just, when they went to lunch, they didn't get a milk.
They would get a milk and they would
put it back.
Get rid of it. So, I think a lot of the questions that I get are about specific foods. And for me, it's not a specific food. There are categories like that make sense to me, like because of the hormone status or whatever. But I don't think that asparagus is going to cure cancer or that a certain mushroom is going to do it for you. You know, I would say if you are looking for guidance with nutrition, I would look to a place that had like an integrative approach. So I don't mind holistic things, but I don't think it considers what you're doing if you're doing a conventional treatment. So I think for me, I'm somewhere in the middle of, you know, I wanted anybody who was advising me to know what I was doing for treatment and how that was affecting me.
And you went where?
And I went to Block Center, which is in Skokie, Illinois. Dr. Block has been doing research, and he's been doing an integrative cancer approach for a long time, right? And it was really helpful to me. I felt like the reason that I was really on board with them was that, one, they understood all of my treatment. They could provide a second opinion to me in some of that, but they also were using lab work. They were using research. They were doing all of those things that made it make sense to me. I didn't feel like it was just sort of a shot in the dark.
And we'll talk more when we get to the medical side and we'll touch base on that again.
Yeah.
But just felt like it wasn't ignoring the medical, but it was bringing in things that the medical side wanted no part of at the time.
Yeah.
And I know that's probably gotten better. But
yeah,
they, instead of a pamphlet, it was a diagnosis and a absolute rundown of you, and then you should be getting more of this, less of this, and following you to truly put your body in the perfect state to fight cancer.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think that's what they did.
Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah. And it was really helpful to me. I was also getting nutrition advice like a calorie, and that's just not true. There are days when whatever you can get in your body is what you should put in your body. I'm not for sure, right? But overall, like we all know that.
And I think you should just hit on one more time that, you can make these decisions to make some drastic type of changes, not only to the food that you're putting in your body, but your family's food and stuff. But it's okay to get some ice cream every now and then. It's okay to, at the birthday party, to have a slice of pizza or what.
Yeah.
This is okay. And moderation. And that's, I teach this, is moderation is important. We don't want to go above and beyond those things that are harmful to your body. But a little bit.
And honestly, my best friend Christy, who walked this whole road with me, actually went on and got her master's in a nutrition degree, whatever. And one of the things that she's pointed out that I think is so helpful is like oftentimes we think about eliminating things, but what we should do first is add things. So rather than think of, I can't have blah, 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 think about, I'm going to eat more fruits and vegetables. Like it's adding when you start looking at that, in the heyday, I was eating 11, 12, 13 servings of fruits and vegetables in a day. I don't get that as much anymore. Partly I'm 50 now and my body almost 50.
Still in her 40s.
I just, calories are different now. I don't need as much food, right? But, but think about adding the adding things that are, good for you is always a win, and they're not going to be high in calories or anything else anyway.
Eat what you need before what you want.
Yeah.
Get what you need in your body. And those needs are different for cancer patients going through treatment in the middle of chemo or in the middle of any kind of treatment than the normal person. And that's where Block or people that truly work with cancer patients all the time can really help you. Yeah. It's a big
part. And honestly,
it's not Block. Any place like
this
that.
This is not an ad for Block.
No.
But there is information out there. I just feel like I wanted a reputable source for information, rather than the people who were emailing me to say that I should try some sort of something.
And you're probably not going to get this information from Facebook or wait, that's old, whatever, Instagram, or like, if you're getting your advice or the things, and I know people are getting that because she's getting some of those questions, and that's where you're getting it. And I get, you just want to say, hey, I heard this. Is this right or wrong? Well, we're not nutritionists.
Nope.
Where her friend is, and other people are. It's okay to run questions by, but go to the right source, with all of your questions about these things.
Yeah. Yeah.
So finally, the part that we haven't talked about is rest. And that is vitally important in this, especially going through treatment.
Yeah. So I just think, as Americans, we're kind of taught that going is better. And as somebody who struggles with sleep more now than I ever have, I mean, just rest is important. And that can look like, just making some choices to go to bed earlier, to kind of clean up your schedule, so you're not getting as much input, but also, like I'm a napper. I can sleep for 20 minutes in the day and it helps me, to feel better. So we're all different in terms of rest, and but it really is important. And,
it is.
And it's
it
another
sounds
kind
like
of fuel.
The opposite of what we've been talking about here is, get up, and even in those times when, you're doing treatment, get up, get moving, and all of that is true, but it has to be balanced, just like a balanced diet. This has to be balanced with rest. If you're pushing your body to an extent where it's going to start breaking down, and especially during treatment, and I just keep saying treatment because there's a lot of different ones, but if that treatment is negatively affecting your body in some way and you're pushing it beyond what that'll allow, then you're actually going to be taking steps backwards.
Yeah.
Where obviously that's not what she wanted. That's not what she did. Listening to your body is important. And get rest when you need it, for sure. Mm-hmm. Okay. Well, hopefully that helped. Hopefully you caught one thing out of there that maybe answered your question or yeah.
I think the one thing is so important, right? So like all of these choices start with one thing, right? We choose to do, walk, make a little walk or whatever, just one thing, and then build on them.
And that's what she did, and without a whole lot of direction, that's what she did. She listened to her body, and she listened to, I think, the right people, and made a plan from that, and got busy, and who knows, maybe that's why you're still here.
Maybe.
I don't know. Till next time, peace out.
See ya.